Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay? Every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.
Hey, this is Tyler Jones, and you're listening to the Element Podcast. What's happening, all my woods people? I'm coming to you from the beautiful state of Oklahoma and the beautiful city of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And this time I have the recorder, and my trusty cohort and co-host, KC Smith, is on the phone. What's happening, brother?
I knew you were a musician, but I didn't know recorder was your specialty. That's pretty cool, man. That's pretty fancy.
Yep.
I'm just sitting here on my porch.
Are you playing recorder?
Bluebirds. Do what?
Are you playing recorder?
No, I'm not.
No.
You got it, man. You wouldn't loan it to me for the weekend,
well,
so I couldn't get a practice in.
Man, it's special. You know, I've had it since the 3rd grade, and
yep. Play Three Ball Mice on it or whatever that other song was.
Yeah, I'm way past that by now, dude.
Yeah,
so,
that's good.
Yeah.
Champion. Yeah, but no, I just had a little supper, a little workout, and am enjoying the cooler weather that we have right now. It's about 80 degrees, which is pretty dang cool.
Dang,
for
man.
a summer night.
Yeah, that cold front came in yesterday.
Cold front, man.
Man,
I don't know if it's really a cold front. It's kind of from the south more with that moisture coming off the Gulf. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's not, but that's the direction all the clouds are moving.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, feels a lot better here too, man. It's not bad at all. This is a welcome break from the summer heat that we've been having.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, you've been working hard. What you been up to, man?
Today I worked hard for half a day. And then I had a doctor's appointment.
Oh.
I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast or not, but I came down with this strange business on my hand. I think it was about the time you and I went fishing down south back in March. I had a little spot pop up, and I have not been able to get rid of this thing. I went to the doctor once and got some antibiotics and some cream, and it has not cleared it up. And that's like 5 weeks ago. So I went to a specialist today, and she seems to think that I've developed a like adult onset allergy to something. Like
it's probably red meat.
Please don't be red meat. No, the doctor gave me 2 shots in my butt of steroids.
Ooh.
And then a steroid cream. So I immediately came home and worked out. That way I could reap the benefits of that.
Yeah. That's how I do. I think the same thing every time I get a shot.
Yeah,
like when I have sinus problems and I get the steroid shot, I'm like, I'm going to work out. I don't know about y'all.
Well, it's I don't know if you've delved deeply into the world of steroids, but there's 4 different types, and anabolic's the only kind that helps you build muscle, and that's not anabolic. I don't remember what it's called when it's medical.
Is that it?
Yeah. Anyway, so I had that happen today, so I only worked half a day, but then I came home, worked out. My wife has been working out with me, so that's a new development.
All right.
But I have also recently really had some bad tendonitis in my ankle, and I don't understand where it's coming from. If it's just like working on that house with really steep pitched roofs and putting on the metal, you know, and having to bend my ankle over real far. But yesterday afternoon, I ran about 1.5 miles, and afterwards, like after I guess I was over my, adrenaline rush of running, like I could hardly walk. I literally drug my leg around. So I've been icing that thing. I got a brace on right now.
Dude, you're falling apart.
I know, man.
What's crazy
it's
is
like a
that
Post Malone song over here.
You're gonna be Mr. like high rise hunter in a couple of years, and all these people you've been making fun of, it's gonna be you.
Dude, if I had to chop my foot off because it hurts too bad, I will, just because I ain't dealing with that. I'm still gonna do what I do.
So,
but it's kind of scary because July, August, September, we're like exactly 3 months out from Colorado for me right now, and I've got a couple plaguing injuries, and it's like, man, I don't know I can't take it easy. A, because work is physical for me, and B, if I do, I'm going to be sucking wind so hard in the mountains that I can't even sneak up on an elk, you know? So,
yeah. Well, so if you're listening, I'm going to need a new hunting partner soon.
Oh, whatever. You're not going to Colorado anyways. I'm the one that needs a new hunting partner. So.
No, I mean, elk hunting partner, yeah. But whitetails, man, you're going to fall apart here soon, it sounds like.
Whitetails for fat, lazy people, man. Don't you know? Haven't you heard what all the Western people say?
I have heard that.
Yeah.
So back to your wife. Did she start working out because of the picture that she had drawn of her?
That might be a little part of it. You're lucky she doesn't listen to this podcast.
Yeah, no. I was just trying to put two and two together because I remember she posted that and I was like, that's funny, you know.
Yeah, the little girl at church drew a picture of me and Cassie, and for some reason she drew Cassie with these giant legs, like elephantitis legs. And Cassie's been a little sensitive about it ever since.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It was pretty funny.
Yours weren't giant though.
No, they never will be mistaken for giant legs. I promise you that.
Yeah.
I promise you that. But they will carry me up some mountains.
Yeah.
And, by the way, if you haven't, we just released a new review video, right? Then you got that out yesterday, and it was awesome. Mm-hmm. It happened to feature myself talking about a backpack that I carried all last season, elk woods and whitetail woods. So, you might want to go check that out if you're in the market for a new pack. I really like the one I've been carrying. I thought about switching to a more whitetailer style pack for whitetail, but when you talk about the added cost and just, what benefits I'm going to get out of it, I don't know if it's really worth it, to tell you the truth. So probably going to stick with what I got, man. What's that called? It's best all around backpack or something like that.
Yeah, something like that, I think. Yeah. It's the newest one on our channel. So if you go to videos on our channel, you'll see it.
If you just subscribe to our channel, then you'll just get updated. Right. Yep. So you don't even have to worry about going and finding it. They'll find you. So go subscribe.
Yeah, you can get notified. And anytime the Bearded Beauty is on there doing a review, you can see it.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
That's kind of funny because the intro of that video, I don't have a beard. And then the video, I do have a beard. It's dude, like, man, look at this guy.
Hey, I mean, I don't care what your wife says, dude. The beard is rocking, man. The beard's rocking.
Because she was asking me yesterday so I'm probably going to shave my head within the next 5 years. I don't know if it's 6 months or 5 years away.
Oh.
But she was like, what are you going to do with your sideburns? I was like, well, I'm either going to have a beard or nothing. I can't just be a dude walking around with two little patches of hair on the side of his face. Can you imagine a guy with no hair and no beard and just sideburns down the bottom of his ears? It'd be pretty weird.
Yeah, it would be. It would be.
Hey, but maybe that would just be a trendsetter, countercultural. You'd be all about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that's countercultural, but I would be all about it.
Yeah.
Well,
that's funny.
Anything else new? Any other ailments?
No, not really too many other ailments, I don't guess.
Yeah.
I'm feeling pretty good. Besides that, my upper body's strong, so that's good.
Yeah.
That's really helpful for deer hunting. Oh, well, I've been shooting my recurve a good bit lately. Yeah, just because. Pretty much it's just easier to bust out and fling a few with it.
Yeah.
For some reason, but
it's
kind of fun.
It's cool.
Yeah.
I miss my bow. I'll be about a week without it, and I've been shooting it every day.
Every morning, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've just been working away, just watching you shoot stuff with your bow. I'm like, dang, That's cool.
Dude, it is cool, except for my target, it's a new target, and it's so cheap that I shoot through it like every fifth arrow.
Yeah, it's not good. You need to put do you not have like an old cheap bag target to put behind it or anything?
No, I don't.
I put a piece of plywood behind my bag target because at 30 yards, sometimes I miss the bag target with my recurve.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you could do that.
We used to have a big piece of styrofoam that washed up from the lake.
Ooh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was nice. It was like probably 4 foot square, so
yeah,
pretty
cool. So why you been doing so much shooting lately?
Well, I got a lot of things going on. Kind of like in this episode, we're gonna be talking about a lot of different things, and it's kind of like a big old smorgasbord plate for you, deer hunting. But the reason I've been shooting so much is, well, for a couple of reasons. Main reason is that I just wanted to just start, getting in the rhythm, start working my shoulders out and getting ready for it. And I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm going to go ahead and admit something here on the podcast that I'm sure people will love to criticize me about. But I've always been I don't know what you call it, but I've always just pulled the trigger when the dot's on the spot. You know what I'm saying?
A puncher.
But people say punch, and it's, like I'm not like going violent with it and torquing my bow and like closing my eyes at the same time, and just letting it fly. I mean, like it's just not sitting there like barely pulling until it goes off, like it's, I mean, I've always punched the trigger.
Yeah. And I'm the same way.
And it's worked for me. And I don't know, I've been trying to practice not doing that and see if I can shoot more accurately. So kind of like that was the goal of starting to shoot, this summer. And, when I was initially getting going with kind of the morning routine. And so I actually, that, and I guess, I didn't do it. I started shooting before I got the new rest, but, if you've kind of been following along, you know that I got a new, QAD Ultra Rest HXD, I guess.
HDX.
HDX, dude. That's
You're so close.
That's the hardest thing to say, like Q's and X's and H's and all these different. Yeah. So anyway, I got the new rest, and you and I put it on, and so that was kind of like, it's kind of like getting a new guitar, you just like, you're inspired to go shoot it, or with the guitar, you're inspired to go play it, and so I started shooting with it, and then I wanted to get into some new arrows because for a couple reasons, but because the arrows that I have or that I've been shooting are down to 2, and then one that's like similar size, but maybe a half-inch difference, and then another one that's like a full inch of difference, and it's actually a different spine. So not even really the same arrow. I think it's actually a different brand too. So like I have 4 arrows, I mean, that's enough to barely fill up my quiver. And so I thought, man, I'm going to need to get some new arrows. And so I've been talking about this on the podcast. I got interested in the FMJ, the Easton Full Metal Jackets, in the 5mm because I thought, well, they're heavier, get less wind drift, they're going to have less surface area. So those two things combined are really going to help, drive the arrow hopefully into a pass-through on the animal. And that's another thing is that I've shot, I could, but I don't want to spend forever thinking about it, but a lot of deer in the Midwest over the last like 10 or 12 years. And I have had, I believe, 1 pass-through. That was on One-Eyed Jack. So if you saw that film, that was the pass-through. All the rest of the deer I had never had a complete pass-through. So it's kind of like, and they're big deer, and I've probably just been, I guess you could call it unlucky, but just, I guess it's coincidence maybe that I've hit both ribs, or whatever, or a rib and a shoulder or something like that, and it just didn't go all the way through, pass all the way through. So I have put a hole in the other side of the deer, but anyway, So I've been on this quest to try to find the right arrow. Well, when I mentioned the FMJ thing on the podcast, one of our good friends, which I really don't have a lot of good friends that listen to the podcast, so I'm really glad that Jordan does. He said, man, I'll send you some. I'm getting rid of some FMJ 5mm, and we shoot the same draw length probably or whatever, So he sends them to me, and I get them. And the next morning, I put one on the string, got the target out there about 20 yards, and I shoot. And I am like turning around to get my other arrow, and then I hear it hit. I mean, it was like creepy crawly. And so I just was like, man, maybe I'm just kind of used to this other arrow. These are pretty lightweight, and maybe it's not as slow as I think. So I shot them, quite a bit for a while. And with those arrows, I was shooting through the target. And, I mean, a lot, it had a lot of pass-throughs with those arrows. And so anyway, I decided what I was going to do is they were like 2 inches longer than my arrows. So I thought, okay, maybe I can cut 2 inches off and have these free 6 arrows. So I go up to the archery shop and meet with Richard. And I start telling him about, how all this that I've just explained kind of, like I haven't had many pass-throughs and and this and that. And, man, he was like, Richard can be pretty opinionated.
I've noticed.
Yeah. And he was like, he was completely like, he went contractor style. Like, I'm not going to tell you what color to put on your walls. I'm not going to tell you, like he was just, but he wasn't like saying things that weren't helpful or whatever. He was just, he was going, well, this is, he goes, well, you've got, even the biggest buck up there, you've got like 16 inches of width, or whatever, you just got, and he goes, another thing, if you get, the only reason you need to poke through the other side is to get another hole in the deer. You get in there 12, 14, 16 inches, you're going to hit both lungs easy. You're going to go through both lungs. And, he said stuff like that. And then he said, you can do this, you can do that kind of thing, and kind of helping me make my decision. So we put the arrows on the bow and we shot them through the chronograph. And I've got some notes here, so I won't be able to remember everything. And I can't really give you the greatest reason probably why I decided to go the way I did, but I'm going to kind of walk through this.
All right, cool.
He puts my old arrows on the bow, and he shoots it through the chronograph. And I'm shooting a Matthews Outback, and I think it's like right at 70 pounds. I mean, it's kind of all the way up. And it shoots at 266. And so another thing that I started looking at is that I've got a lot of footage, or I've got some footage of a couple of deer that I've shot. And I can see that these deer, even big bucks that aren't paying attention, are moving before the arrow gets there, Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking, that's where I'm at, probably pretty much maxed out speed-wise, 266.
Mm-hmm.
He puts the FMJ on there, and let's see, my old arrows were a 400 spine. They're 8.3 grains an inch.
It's a lot.
360 grain arrow weight.
Yeah, it's a real lot.
The FMJs are a 340 spine with 11.2 grains an inch, and it's basically a 500 grain arrow.
Oh, I bet you were shooting low, like 240 or less.
233.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty slow.
That's really slow, dude. I mean, that's the problem, is it was slow as Christmas, man. And so, like, this may be wrong, so do the math, and if I'm wrong, let me know. But by my calculations, at 40 yards, the FMJ is still almost 5 yards from the target when the old arrow hits. So I hope to not be shooting at 40 yards. I want to shoot.
That's tough math. But yeah.
So what we looked at is we figured if we cut, they have inserts in them. I believe are 50 grain inserts. Does that make sense?
Oh, were they brass?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so they were the heavy ones.
We figured if we cut the inserts out and shortened it 2 inches, we would still be at a slower speed than these new arrows that I was looking at getting. So basically they're gold tip 340s. And so it's got a little more spine in it. So
it's good. I think you need that for sure.
I think I do too. Yeah.
How did you end up with the 400s on your bow? Is it when you had it not quite as high turned up?
I think they were my dad's arrows. I think my dad and I shot the same arrow for a while just because he bought a bunch of them and I needed arrows,
Yeah.
So I think that's how I ended up with that. But yeah, I got into the 340, and these new arrows are 8.9 grains an inch. So now I'm up to 380, and I shot that at 258. And I thought,
so
that's 8 feet per second difference,
Yeah, that's pretty negligible.
Yeah, and so I'm thinking that may be like, I don't know, I would just guess that maybe an inch difference in the deer jumping the string or so, I mean, it can't be much.
Yeah, maybe it's not a lot. So, anything under 10 is, not a whole lot. From what I have researched, and this is just, what I read on the internet pretty much, but like that around 260 is kind of where you really want to be. Mm-hmm. You don't want to go much slower than that.
Yeah.
If you're a standard whitetail hunter, so you're still what I would call in pretty good range right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, so by shortening the FMJ and taking the inserts out, we would still be a slower speed than these new arrows. Mm-hmm. And so I was just trying to find like I wanted a little more weight, possibly to help, just to help drive the arrow through. I wanted the spine, honestly, and then, but I didn't want to slow down too much. And I think 8 feet per second is pretty good. Compromise on all these things, I think. And I, more than anything, like I told Richard, I want to make sure that where I aim and intend to hit that deer or hit, wherever I put my dot, and, it may be below the deer if I think it's going to jump the stream, but wherever I intend for my arrow to hit, I want it to pretty much hit there. I don't want the deer to jump, on my slow arrow and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my goodness, or whatever. I don't want that to happen if I can keep from having it happen. So to me, speed is a big deal. And, having a bow that's over a decade old, it's just part of the game. Like I can't shoot a big heavy FMJ and stay up there in that 260 range,
Yeah,
so.
That's exactly right. If Jordan doesn't want those arrows back, you might should hang on to them for in the future. If you do step up to a different bow, a faster bow, that's going to be the arrow you want to shoot. You just aren't there yet.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I thought the same thing, man. I mean, I don't know. I think I feel good about it, man. I mean, like I said in the beginning, he made the point that, an exit hole is going to help with the blood trail, but man, I don't know. I want to be a good shot. I want to take smart shots and not just, get too crazy with it. And hopefully just shoot deer and kill them quick. I mean, I don't want to have to blood trail a deer for 200 yards. I know that could happen, but, it could happen if you're shooting a big slow arrow, the deer has a lot of time to get out of the way of, you can make a bad shot too. So, I just thought, man, I'm just going to try to keep it pretty fast, and it's worked for me. Yeah, I've only had one pass through up there in the Midwest in 12 years or whatever, but I've killed them all, So
yeah, that's true.
I just kind of had to stay with something pretty similar, I felt like. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you made the choice that you're most confident in. I am glad that you went up. Because if you were saying you went lighter than 360, I was going to be like, oh boy. I was going to be kind of worried. But it sounds like that Richard has some sound logic behind, what he thinks and what the page y'all are on. I think that I'm a little bit different on philosophy, but that's okay. We just kind of have two different viewpoints. And I'm looking at also, getting a speed bow pretty soon. So, that's going to definitely change things up. When you get brand new technology, you can use the new arrow technology too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's cool. So what about the tuning issues that you and I were messing with here a while back?
Man, he just moved the peep, pretty much. I mean,
moved the peep?
He moved the knocking point and then and moved the peep as well. Sorry. He moved the knocking point and then obviously he had to move the peep, but yeah, he moved the knocking point. And so, We did move the rest a little bit, but I mean, it was fractions of an inch, just to make sure it didn't touch.
You started tearing a good hole.
Yeah. I mean, he had it fixed up in no time at all. And
cool. Do you remember which gold tips those are?
Hunter series or something like that, maybe.
Pro Hunters. Maybe?
I think so. They got like a green graphic on them.
Yeah, that's what I have for my trad bow. Actually, you can shoot my trad bow arrows through your compound. They're the 340s, the gold tip Pro Hunters or whatever. It's apparently that's what he likes to sell at the store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
he told me he had like a new gold tip arrow that's got a different resin or different carbon or both in it or something, he was saying.
Yeah.
And they're like a higher end brand. He said he had a ton of them, so he's like, I shoot them because I got a ton of them.
Yeah.
So he I guess, I don't know, he has a ton of those, and I mean, probably has a lot of those 340s too. I mean, I saw some in there, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. He like I said, he can be opinionated and stuff, but he also is very knowledgeable, man, and he he feels confident in knowing certain statistics about like what has always worked on this or that, and so he's like, this has been an industry standard for, like front of center. I can't remember exactly what his number was, but he's like, front of center, the industry standard has been, this and this to this for 30 years or whatever, He's like, everybody wants to go really heavy front of center now. And he's like, that's just the craze. He's like, I think, I'm not saying it's a bad deal, but I mean, you don't have to do that. It's always been effective to do this for 30 years or whatever, So I don't know.
There's points to both sides of it.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure that there were people who thought that rollers on bows were a craze at one point in time too, They're like all the old recurve guys. But you just got to be, I think, slow to change, but open to change is a good way to be in all aspects of life, So,
just be
I don't know,
knowledgeable, try to research what you can.
Yeah, that's what I try to do sometimes. Man, the problem with all that is that you run into somebody and you're like, man, I really like what this guy has to say, and I like what he's writing about, and then he throws something in there that you're like, whoa, I don't know about that. You're like, well, how am I supposed to trust here?
Yeah, just lots of cross-referencing, I guess.
Yeah,
that's
exactly. And the predicament that you and I both get in is that we don't have the funds to just buy 30 arrows, 6 different types of each, and fletch them all different ways and shoot them and see what works best. That's just not the world we live in. So I kind of need to at least get it right on the second try. Really, you try to do it on the first try. So,
well, I mean, I think you just gotta. The thing is, man, this is one thing a good point that Richard made. He's like, man, he's like, you ride the middle ground. I mean, if you do that, you're probably going to be okay, I mean, you can go extremely heavy and something could definitely happen. Like either way, radical is, not always the best way to be. So,
sure.
Anyway, I felt good about it.
Is. There's guys that are shooting deer and elk and bears with 700 grain recurve arrows, that are flying at 160 or 170 foot per second or whatever it is, real slow, There's a way to do everything, but at the same time, you're not setting yourself up for 15-yard shots, but you're also not setting yourself up for 60-yard shots. You're going to be in that whitetailer's range, and you want to get something there fast enough, but lethal enough when it gets there. So,
I mean, I
think that middle ground's a good thing.
Yeah, for sure, man. And, whitetail is just not a huge animal, I mean, some of them are, but, it's just not an elk, or Africa game species. So,
anyway. Dude, moose in 2020 though, man. Come on. Ready.
I'm going to have a new bow for that, probably. new wallet, new bank account, everything.
Bring a rifle would be fine.
I might do it.
When you go on an adventure trip like that, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love bow hunting, but sometimes it's, if it's a once in a lifetime or once a decade kind of trip for you, it's good to go up there with some insurance, or even just some extended range. I feel like at 50 yards, I'm as lethal with a bow as I am with a gun. Mm-hmm. But am I going to be able to get 50 yards from that awesome caribou that I want to shoot, or do I need to shoot him at 200 yards?
Right.
Right. So,
no doubt, man. No doubt.
That's another wormhole for another podcast.
Yeah, no doubt. So, what are you been any new fronts on your gear, your bow, or anything?
Well, I think I have a bow ordered.
Ooh.
I think, but it hasn't hit my bank account yet, so I'm not going to say too much about it yet.
Yeah. Okay.
So when it comes, whenever my money is in someone else's hands, then it'll be official. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
But but so why are you away from your bow for a week?
Well, back at it, man. Back at the music thing again. So,
ooh, rock and roll.
Yeah, up here in Tulsa, cool. doing the rest of our record, and really, we actually booked another 3 days today. So not on this trip, but in a separate session, because we just want to make sure we get it done right, man. And it's not going to cost me anything extra to book those days. And the producer is a talker. And real relaxed, and I mean, this is like honest truth, man. We may like do a couple guitar parts and then talk for an hour straight, So it's just taking a while, and we're just really working really hard on all the little fine details of everything. Just like as a hunter, you would work the fine details of your hunting plan or whatever it might be, so that you can, or the fine details of your arrow, so that you can, the end product is a big success. So, is
that pretty standard for a producer, or are they all different? Like, are there cutthroat ones? And
man, no, I don't think that's very standard for producers.
Yeah.
I've worked twice with CJ Erickson, who produced Blue October, Hanson. He did engineering work on the Science album for Incubus. Hoobastank, he produced them. He does in-ear monitors on U2 World Tours. I mean, this dude has like got some legit credits. And he is like, he's a lot different than this guy. I mean, he works really fast and very focused, and just, I mean, he's like, as far as guitar parts go and stuff, you're like, what do you think about this tone? And he's like, let's hear it. He's like, and then just let you play the whole song with it. And he's like, sounds good to me, whatever. Like and it ends up sounding good because he knows what he's doing, and he engineers well, and he can cut frequencies he doesn't like, and this and that. But the guy I'm working with now, man, he really gets it right from the start. He's very traditional with the engineering side of things. He makes sure the mic's in the right spot, and we work on we may change an amp settings for 30 minutes before we record that part, so it's pretty, it's cool, man. It's probably like, the trad bow hunter versus the compound hunter, or, whatever. It's like, takes longer, maybe more satisfying, but not everybody has time for that,
Yeah, for sure. So you've kind of made this comparison a little bit. I wanted to ask you a question kind of on this note, but how has your music career made you a better hunter?
Oh man, that's a good question. Man, one thing, I mean, there's probably several things, but the first thing that comes to my head right off the bat is I'm a pretty good traveler. I feel pretty good traveling.
You know what? That was going to be, if you didn't think of it, that was going to be the one I was going to tell you about yourself.
Yeah, I can travel pretty well, man. I usually don't feel out of my comfort zone whatsoever, being on the road and living out of a duffel bag. It was touring, man, you know, I mean, you get a big old duffel bag, you stuff it full of as many cool clothes as you can, and, you know, some hair product and toothbrush and DO, you know, and you take off, man, and you live out of that bag night to night for, you know, maybe a week at a time, and you come back and you put it down on the ground, you wash some clothes, and a few days later you go back out, you know. And so, and then not to mention just kind of like knowing the ropes of the road, trying, you know, I mean, I'm pretty bad about like needing to pee like every 30 minutes, you know, but I try to like dehydrate myself before I go on trips that are going to be long, you know, and that way I'm not having to do that every so often on the road.
What's funny is that, like, if I hydrate and you dehydrate, we usually have to pee about the same time on the road. If that gives everybody any impression of the status of your bladder.
Dude, I'm telling you, it's bad.
You just have a small bladder because your heart's so big. That's what it is, man.
I appreciate
takes
that,
up
man.
all the extra room.
Yeah. Sometimes maybe that's what the deal is.
Yeah. Which one do you think had the bigger, like, success curve? You know what I'm saying?
Like out of hunting and music?
Yeah.
Definitely sharper curve, I guess you'd say, in this this hunting thing that we're doing here, man. I don't know, man. It's weird. I grew up hunting and fishing, and that's what I love to do, and that's what I wanted to do. And I think I've told you this, you know, but throughout my whole music, all the touring we did, and when we were really trying to go at it and make a lot of money at it and stuff, I was like, you know, I love music so much. I love playing music. I love it so much, but it really just rides a very close second to hunting and fishing for me, and it always has, always will. And so even though like I was pursuing that for a while and I didn't hunt and fish quite as much as I would have liked to, you know, I still, for one, you still got to make money, you know, so I was just trying to do something that I love to make money when I couldn't really find a good avenue to make money in hunting and fishing, you know, so I've had, you know, I may have talked about this probably on the podcast, but just, you know, I had a team that we did like some pretty high production value films and stuff like that, or for us, you know, for what the gear we had and the experience we had, and we really tried hard, and we were on the front edge of that whole thing a little bit. I think it's kind of like commonplace now, it seems like, to do high production value stuff. So now we're just trying to think out of the box, but all this is a side point. So I just, you know, since none of that was kind of working out, man, music was definitely starting to take hold and helped me do that thing. But man, like I just saw such a long road in that, and I don't know if I know there's a lot more competition out there. There's probably, you know, I'm sure there's more musicians in the world than there are hunters and fishermen, you know, probably. But I mean, man, just bands and songwriters and this and that, and just a lot of competition out there, and people see the stage and the lights and everything, and they think it's a great life, and they want to go get it. And man, yeah, it's cool at times. And I'll tell you what, the you know, 45 to 90 minutes you spend on stage are some of the best you could ever ask for, man. I mean, it's like 90 minutes of a deer coming in, you know? I mean, it's just like you forget about all your responsibilities. You just let like the moment just take over, and you close your eyes, man, and you go after it, and everything's good, man. Most of the time. And so, yeah, just, man, it's a cool thing. It's just, people, I think, overestimate how cool it is to have that rock star lifestyle. 'Cause it's not, I mean, like I said, the 90 minutes is great, but the rest of it, man, it's a drag, and it's a lot of work, and so there's a lot of competition, but people always drop out. So now you have to stay in it for years and years and years. Sometimes,
well,
you know.
Do you think that that's kind of where they differ, to where, like, you and I've talked about this before, like people talk about the grind of hunting, and if you do it wrong, I guess it can be that way. But to me, man, I enjoy all the other little stuff too. You know, and where, like you just described the music stuff, like, it's more like a football career where you do all this practice that just really stinks, and then you get to play on Friday or Saturdays or even Sundays, and then that's where it's awesome. Is that kind of what music's more like?
Well, yeah, it is in a way. Honestly, it was like, for me, I enjoyed the heck out of it. I mean, I didn't. There was times when it was tough, for sure, and most of it was like anxiety stuff more than like drudgery and that kind of thing. I feel like I can outwork anybody, man, if I had to, and so it wasn't a deal like I was tired and I was so tired of working hard and this and that. It was just anxiety of trying to make things happen the correct way when, you're kind of playing halfway rock and roll and it's supposed to be chaotic, and this and that, and, and that's just kind of the lifestyle a little bit. So, and that was probably more the grind, I guess you would say, for me. But I would, I think that also the more like clout you get, the bigger your band gets or whatever, the easier it gets on you. You got a lot of expectations, you got a lot of mouths to feed, and your songs are feeding those mouths, so there's a lot of responsibility in writing them. But you have tour managers and, general managers. And, we had a tour manager for the last couple of years or so. And it just makes life much easier when you got an extra guy that can drive the van. Or, if you get big enough, you got a bus and you got a bus driver, so nobody in the band has to drive. You got bunks in the back. You sleep, as much as you can. And instead of driving a van late at night or whatever, early in the morning, and doing radio tours and all that, and worried about all the details. Instead, people are talking to your tour manager and stuff like that. So, it gets easier. But yeah, it's kind of like, I guess, in the hunting world, it would be like maybe your first couple of years hunting public land. Like you go out there and you see a couple does and it's tough. And then you do it for 4 or 5 years and all of a sudden, you have, several does come in each time and then maybe a big buck every, 5, 6, 7, 10 times, so maybe. Yeah. It depends on what public land you're hunting.
Yeah. That's for sure. That's cool, man. So would you almost say that hunting prepared you more for music as opposed to the other way around, like I asked earlier?
Yeah, probably, man. Honestly, football prepared me for a lot of things, Yeah. I hunted before I played football, so there was definitely lessons learned there, but I didn't there's hunting is deep for us now. Like we talk about a lot of deep stuff these days, not just like in the community, but also just like you and I or whatever, like you get older, you start thinking about stuff. But when you were younger, like you didn't think like, why do I kill this thing? It's just like, it's just kind of this thing that's almost natural in you when your dad says, let's go hunting, So it didn't really, I didn't really learn any lessons, I guess, prior to being a football player that were nearly as big or bold or valuable as what I learned in football. And then, playing all the way up till I was 22 years old, there's a lot of lessons to be learned there. A lot of men that I didn't really admire that much, and a lot of great men I thought that coached me as well. That man, you get to learn a lot of lessons, and hard work is one of the ones that just like me, and I'm just going to be frank, like me as like a white boy from East Texas. I had to outwork people. I had to be smarter and outwork them, so if I wanted to play. So that's just kind of the way it was. And so learning that prepared me, or allowed me to, I guess, be a hunter that endures greenbrier or cold weather or, cold toes and those kind of things, just as much as it like allowed me to endure staying up till 4 a.m., loading out gear and then getting up at 6 to go do a radio interview by 8, that's 2 hours away. So, it's just, I don't know, just kind of, you're the same way, you know, like that's one reason you and I get along and we hunt together and we enjoy hunting together is because we just have that like hard nosed, just to the grindstone, but like doesn't bother us kind of thing, you know, almost like too dumb to be hurt kind of thing, you know. So,
yeah, I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you a little progression.
Okay.
Here, okay, and tell me you've probably heard it, but for the listener too, in case you haven't heard it, suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance produces character, and character produces hope.
Okay.
Do you know where that's at?
Sounds like a biblical thing to me.
It is a biblical verse. So I live my life by a pretty much a how-to guide that some people call the Bible.
Yeah.
And it has, of course, it's got a bunch of great spiritual implications, but it also has so many real-world applications. You know, like, yes, we're talking about your Christian walk when you talk about that, but man, what a better way to just go about things. Like, you go through the suffering, you go through the long practices, or you go through the hot days in July when we're out checking trail cameras, or you go on the radio tours, you know, where you got to play till midnight and be up for a radio interview at 8 a.m. the next day, you know, 2 hours away or whatever. Like, it's suffering. It stinks. It's hard, right? But when you go through that, you get to that point of where you talk about you and I are, where you're like, man, I'm hard-nosed, ornery enough, or whatever you want to call it, to where I'm going to make this work, and we're going to do this, and it's going to be fun. I'm going to make it fun. You know what I mean? And I'm going to find a way for this to be fun. But I have whistling ducks flying over my house right now.
Man, I've been hearing all kinds of birds at your house.
Yeah?
Yeah.
The locusts went on a rage fest.
Yeah, I can kind of hear them a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. But, and then, like, you want to apply that to hunting, you know, with the perseverance thing, man. Like, there's a lot of long sits in the stand, especially this past year, that, like, man, it just weren't the greatest, you know. But it's like you said before, like, whenever we do get the payoff, it's going to be so good, right? You know, and that's how it was for us when you killed the buck in the Midwest this year, man. It's like we did all this tough stuff, and then we went somewhere and we did the things that we know are right? The things that we have learned, right? The things that we know to be true, which a lot of people would define character as doing things right. You know, I mean, we're doing things right in the whitetail woods, doing what we know to be true, and it plays out for us, man. And that's cool. And I think that you can take that on a very base level and think about, like, you know, if you learn to persevere all the tough stuff in the woods through your different things that you do in life, whether it's play music or hunt or play ball or whatever you do, and it teaches you how to do stuff right. It gives you the hope, or maybe we could call that confidence, to know that you've put yourself in place to get it done. You know what I mean? And I feel like you have that now in the music industry, you know, to where, like, you've been down that road, you've done this, you've toured, you've done all this stuff, and you know what it takes. And I'm not saying you know what it takes to, you know, make it play in the Opry, you know, 3 nights a week, but you know what it takes to make you happy, and you know what it takes to enjoy this, you know, playing music, rock and roll, man. You know, and you've got it figured out by now, and it's cool. Well,
that's cool, man. I appreciate your introspect there, and like that means a lot. That's I mean, you pretty much summed it up for me, man. That's the way I do feel, man. You know, I mean, I've seen most of the sides of it, you know, and I know what's going to make me happy and where I need to be with that for the most part. So yeah, dude, I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the new album, and
okay, so what's that going to be called, and when's that going to be tentatively released?
We don't have a release date yet because you know we don't work under a label or anything, and we just we're wanting to make sure it gets done the right way, and so don't have anything yet. Don't want to put any kind of stress on us, but it's the album's called Bright Side of the Earth. Song I wrote. I consider it's my favorite song that I've written.
Really?
One of my
That's
best
cool.
songs. So, yeah, and it's going to be on the album, obviously, and a song about depression and trying to overcome it and finding a way to overcome it and whatever that might be. But in my case, kind of through my wife and just her wisdom and honestly, I guess you could say leadership or just steadfastness, So anyway, it's kind of it's a very personal song and one that I'm pretty excited to put out there. And I think we're going to be working the guitars on it tomorrow, I believe. So
Sweet.
pretty excited to get after that. Yep.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like music doesn't sell anymore. It's a free thing. So I'm not going to make much money back on this thing from that, but hopefully play some shows and that kind of thing and make some money that way. And if I can break even on it at some point, I'll feel pretty good about it. I've already know I've had a good time doing it. I mean,
Yeah,
you go
it's good.
spend. Some people may go spend. There's people listening to it right now. It's this podcast that probably have gone and spent several thousand on some kind of Western big game hunt of some kind, and I kind of consider it something like that I could actually make some money back on one day. So
yeah, it's all right.
I don't know that I'll, like I said, I don't know I'll make money on it, but I'd like to break even at some point in the next 3 or 4 years. So
yeah, well, when you take the concern for that out of it, and I bet it'll, you'll get that much more enjoyment out of it,
yeah.
and it might just fall into place for you. you know?
Oh yeah, man, that's true, man. Sometimes having taking the concern out of it and not stressing can make you successful in that whatever way you would be stressing about.
Sure.
I mean, it could be deer hunting too.
Yeah, I don't know if you felt that way, but I wasn't behind the bow. I was behind the camera this past year when we went on our Midwest trip, but I was about a stress level 0 on that trip. I was having the time of my life, like it was just so much fun.
Yeah.
And it worked out for us, So
yeah, I mean, me too, man. I mean, I don't know. I know people that do this stuff and try to make a living at it, or extra money or whatever, or even just people that are normal guys that are hunting that would like for their hunting buddy or their community to think they're a good hunter. It's pretty easy to go off and stress when you're not seeing much or having a hard time getting it done. But man, honestly, you just got to try to remember the roots of why we do this. I'm literally just talking about my album too right now. It's like I'm trying to remember the roots of. I didn't get into music because I wanted to go play to 3 radio people at 8 a.m. that have no clue who I am and are not excited to hear my song, that I'm struggling through early in the morning. I didn't get into it for that. I got into it because I had 2 buddies that played music, and we would grip 3 chords on the guitar and, take off and play some terrible rock and roll. And it was the most satisfying thing ever, so it's kind of like this. You got to remember, like you remember you used to want so bad to shoot a spike, you got to.
Hey, I did that this past year for about 30 minutes. I wanted so bad to shoot a spike.
Dude, you're not lying, man. I was like, I wanted you to shoot a spike for longer than 30 minutes. That's for sure. I was like, as soon as they came out, I was like, dude, we got to do this.
Man. Yeah. Well, hopefully this next year we won't get relegated to wishing for spikes. But you know what? If it comes down to that, it means we had an awesome deer season where we got to hunt like 3 months straight, There's always a cool part about it. We were this past year when we had the spikes come out, we were learning things up to the very last minute. We learned a little lesson about ground scent right there, like it's one of those things.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And I mean, we're excited about where we're at, and we're playing up to the season, man. And man, we've been doing some trail camera work lately, and
when are you gonna get back down here so we can do some more suffering together.
Man, there'll be a few days after next week. I think there'll be a few days that I'll be around, and
All right.
if we got anything else we want to do, it's fine. But man, I was really thinking after our last outing about a lot of different things, and in the kind of the scouting and trail camera, spectrum, and a couple of things I've been thinking is for one, I saw like what looked to be like what's going to be a pretty big deer in my backyard the other day. And already kind of like just starting the split of his G2s, 4 or 5 inch brow tines, probably 4. And,
I saw the same deer about 20 miles from you. So that's crazy that he covered that much distance.
I know, man.
I texted you about that the other morning. I pulled into work at the where we're building the house, and there's a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old in the front yard. It's hard to tell this time of year, but that's what I'm going to call him. Mm-hmm. And that 4-year-old, man, like you're saying, like close to 5-inch brows, and definitely, working on his beams past his 2s. Yeah. And it's like, dang, that is freaking awesome.
Yeah. Well, what's crazy, dude, is, Lee and Tiffany have like that live trail camera. Have you ever gone and looked at that?
Oh my gosh. When I used to work at the mattress store, I literally in the fall would spend probably 2 or 3 hours just staring at my screen.
Yeah.
While that was
Well, I went and
cool.
looked at it the other day, and somebody, I don't know if there's like a guy that does this or not, but there was somebody who was like writing out all the different times that different deer came up, so I was just like scrolling through and finding them. Dude, one of these deers is a 9-point that like right now scores 130 probably. I mean, ooh. Like, I'm just like, golly, this thing. He's got, fully developed G4 all the way out to G4 on one side, and then, and I'm just like, golly, this thing is huge. I don't know if that's like, I wonder if like deer, like some deer just start developing quicker, like maybe they lost their horns earlier, or if it's just like he's just going to be a giant, or whatever.
I don't know. Well, you remember last year we had, whenever we had Scar and Seven on camera, just fixing to start developing their 3s, there was a buck that was pretty much ready to shed. Yeah. You remember that deer?
Yeah.
I think I need to actually go back and look at that footage, because we were running video then, and see what deer that is, because I'm pretty sure it's one of the 3-year-old 8s from over there. It might be the one I passed this year. I don't know, but I mean, we've seen that here in person. Like it's deer are definitely individuals.
Yeah. It's interesting, man, for sure. Richard said he has one that's like pretty developed right now and is very tall too. I mean, I don't think he's like quite like that, but he's got one near him. So I don't know. It's cool, and it makes me excited because we went last week on. We went and found a new piece of property. We had found a new piece of property, and we had been out there one time. I think in February. I was sick, but I rode with you, and then you went and scouted this spot, and I saw a deer from the truck. I think we made a PLC over it, but we went back to this spot, and this is a new spot for me, and you just kind of speed scouted it that day and didn't put any cameras out or anything. So we wanted to get cameras out, and we were kind of had a different plan. When we showed up, we thought, you know what, we should just, this is a good area over here. We should try. I mean, it's a big piece of property, so we couldn't really cover the whole thing. But we covered a lot of it, and we thought we would just put put a web of trail cameras out, basically. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I don't know, I kind of want to go through, like, what we were thinking and what we think when we're going in to scout something, and talk about it in relation to what we did the other day as well, to just kind of lay out, paint a picture for the listener, I guess. And I kind of just wanted to pick your brain, because a lot of times, like, I know your mind's moving way faster than mine usually. And so, like, and we don't just sit there and talk while we're walking the whole time a lot of times. So I know I'm missing a lot of thoughts you have, but like when you show up to a property and you're thinking, I need to scout this and web it out, like what are your just big picture overall thoughts going into this?
Me and my map scouting, like that's how I'm going to first develop thoughts of the property. That's how I usually find a property, is to look at it on the map, very not often do I drive past something and say, oh, I can hunt that. It's just not we don't really live in an area you can do that much, so, or just the whole state of Texas. Like, it's not like the West where you can drive around. There's just public everywhere. But, found this place on the map, and it's tough because really, like, my first step is a whole bunch of little steps that kind of add up to one thing whenever I go to, assessing. So let's back up. We're going to talk about camera scouting, right? Like, this isn't really like, if I'm going to go hunt it, this is what I do, but this is like how to lay out a camera web, right?
Yeah.
On a place like this.
That's what I'm kind of thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll hear oftentimes, like, if you're talking about like a heavy pressured piece of public land, which most of it in Texas is, people will tell you, like, the major funnels you can see from an aerial, there's probably going to be somebody already sitting there, and you hear that a lot. Well, that's for hunting. If we're talking about for some trail or summertime trail camera sets, those are still great places. Nobody's going to really be in there doing this stuff this time of year. And if they are, just be sure you hang your camera up high and point it down, and most likely they'll walk right by it. But so that's kind of one of the first things I look for, is just like places. And I guess through experience, I think I've gotten pretty good at this, but just understanding like a general deer movement area, maybe not knowing exactly what trail or whatever, but like I've gotten to where I think I can look at a map and say, deer are going to go through that little spot right there, somewhere within 50 or 75 yards. And then I kind of line that up with distance from the truck or terrain features like creeks, hills, meadows versus timber.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're like on this particular property, there's a river system, and, you can take a river system a lot of times, especially on like a public piece of property, because they're, a lot of like these parcels are kind of like old bottom floodplain stuff,
Yeah, stuff that can't be farmed, pretty much is what we get.
And you can't make money off it, so they put it into a public piece, whatever.
Yeah.
But, like the river system or creek system may go north and south, east and west, whatever, but that, I feel like that was a big key to how we approached hanging trail cameras on this property was, that deer are going to move up and down the river system.
Yeah, that's pretty much a motif that I think you'll find from Maine to South Texas, like anywhere whitetails exist, they're going to hang out in the riparian zones, and they're probably going to walk along the edge of the water. It's just kind of what they do. Maybe not right on the edge, but they're going to follow the creek line in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So that's kind of one of the things that you and I did last week, or whenever it was we went out there, is we took and we found one of those funnels, one of those pinches that also kind of, I guess, coexisted with the way that river system was working down the property. And we headed pretty much, I don't always do this, but we headed straight back. Like we were kind of on a death march for a while.
Yeah.
Just went a long ways back in there and found a pretty good spot. Actually found a shed, which was cool, especially for this time of year. Found a shed on a place where deer were crossing the fence. So, that's going to be a pretty good spot to catch deer movement. And some places you might have a situation where your summertime movements are going to be a lot different than your fall movements. Maybe if you're in heavy ag country, or you're in the big woods where, you got acorn falls that really make a big difference. And there's some of that here, but really this place, the deer live in the same, I guess, home ranges all year long. Wouldn't you agree? It's kind of what sets up that way.
Yeah. It's just, it's not ag country, and a lot of big woods, but also, good edge habitat where things get shorter, and it's, sumac thickets and boat arcs and stuff like that,
Yeah. So pretty much a place where, and it's kind of cool for, summertime trail camera sets too. Like, you have good confidence that if you find a deer there in July or August, that he's probably going to be in the same general area, come the fall, and moving a lot come November and December. So, anyways, that's what we did. We took out first and went way back and found a good place to hang a camera. on a pinch, and then from there worked our way along that waterway, and just kind of meandered our way through tree scouting, looking for beds and
You found a good
different
bed.
things. Yeah, we did. We found a really good bed, a bed that I think that we jumped a buck out of because it was so fresh, and it was big. I laid down in the thing, and it was the same size as me.
Yeah.
So I'm about 200 pounds, and if that's a 200-pound buck, I will be stoked. You know, that's a big deer for around here.
For sure, man. I'll tell you one thing that I kind of thought I noticed. Not every property that we have hunted has set up this way, you know, with a big river system, I guess. But, you know, you have this river system. Well, every river system has like feeder creeks in it. And so one thing I noticed is that as you're going either east and west or north and south, whichever way the river travels, the feeder creeks are going to be coming from a different direction most of the time, you know, like the perpendicular direction. So well, one thing that I noticed that we were finding a lot of is these feeder creeks coming in, and to me, that's a great spot that you can find a crossing. You know what I'm saying? And like these feeder creeks on a good sized river system are also like pretty hard to, you know, just cross in any spot you want to. So the deer are going to funnel down at other spots there. And I noticed we were really finding some, and I don't know, I can't think if we actually even set up a trail camera on one of those spots, but I did notice that they're like, and that I feel like that would be a good spot to hunt as well whenever the rut's happening.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like too that a lot of the places that we scout and hunt don't have well-defined trails often, and if they are, they're usually pretty picky. But you'll be walking through an area where you're like, yeah, deer can move through here. I definitely can see how they'd use the area, but there will be a well-defined creek crossing. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of the one place they kind of condense and traffic jam where they're all going to cross this one spot. Yeah. Because it doesn't always work this way, but this place set up this way where the large water body flowing through there had really steep banks, right? So those deer aren't going to cross that in very many places. And then what happens is those feeder creeks progress from having steep banks upstream to flattening out pretty good. And there'll be a certain spot on each feeder creek where the deer, you know, it's that whole like lazy deer thing, right? Yeah. Like they don't want to exert energy. So they're going to find the best place to cross where they're far enough down in the cover, down towards the big water body there to still be, you know, feel safe. But they go far enough up the feeder creek to where it's not like they're having to crawl down and crawl up. You know, it's kind of like one bound and they're across. Yeah. So there's almost like a terrain, maybe a topo line or whatever you could kind of identify there as like, hey, most of these creeks, you know, anywhere between 200 and 210 foot elevation. I'm making that up. You know, I don't know what it is, but you could probably find crossings in that general area. Right. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like a lot of times, like a deer could be traveling up and down that creek system or river system, and, you know, have like a several 100-yard stretch with no feeder creeks. And then all of a sudden he gets to the spot where the feeder creek is, and he maybe walked the whole river system. He walked within 50 yards, but like the good crossing on that feeder creek is 110 yards away from the creek. You know, he's probably going to loop out and hit that and go back towards the river if he wants to go up that way. That's, you know, he's just not going to jump and try to jump through a, you know, really tight, narrow, steep creek bank a lot of times, you know. And we've seen that multiple times in different places. You know, if you think back to postseason scouting for teenager, we went in that place. You know where I'm talking about? That one pretty good sized feeder creek that I would venture that from the major water body there, that's 200 yards. And those deer literally like to walk within 15 or 20 yards of the big creek, you know, but they made a big loop up to get around that sucker. Yeah. So that's something that and you start talking about rut cruising dates, you know, those are big. That's big. That's a big point right there. Well, I mean, and another thing is,
with the fence crossing that you talked about earlier and the creek crossings, if you pick up a buck there, you're likely to pick up deer. There, it may be nighttime, but if you pick up the target deer that you're after at night, then you can backtrack from there. You can assume where. I mean, you probably know where he's coming from according to the picture, and then you just go, okay, well, that's where he bedded that direction from here. Let's look at the map again. You look at the map and you start backtracking, and it may be 15 yards or it may be 150 yards. And we did that with Teenager when we originally found him, and we missed the first time we hung trail cameras on him.
Yeah.
So it took a second time before we could find where he was. So, that's just kind of part of it. But yeah, like you find those funnels like that, and even if they're not a daytime movement, you're really just when you're going in to web out a new property, especially, you're really finding, what deer are on the property and which direction they're coming from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And a side note, something I didn't think about earlier, but when we're hanging trail cameras this time of year, it's like very imperative that you consider the direction the sun's going to rise and set, and also consider the vegetation in front of the camera.
Yep.
Because, I mean, you start talking about, July, how tall the warm season grasses get and how fast they can grow, especially with, if you get a couple rain showers here and there. You might go in there in mid-June and hang a camera and everything's fine, and then come back a month later and you got Johnson grass covering your camera and you can't see anything.
Yeah.
Or even just the fact that there's a little cedar elm that's growing right in front of your camera. Well, no big deal, especially if it was in the fall. It just wouldn't even be there because it's just a stick. But whenever things are leafed out, it's totally different.
Yeah.
And then you think about how harsh the evening sun is and how long the shadows can get. I feel like in the wintertime, I just do my best to get my cameras pointed in a northerly direction, like, the north half of the hemisphere. Just point them that way and you're fine with the sunlight and stuff. But in the summer, I don't know if this is merited or if it's just something that I do and I think it works, but I pretty much do my best to take my camera and try to orient it where it's pointing just a few degrees up of east. Does that make sense? Like east, northeast, because that morning sun is usually not as harsh. So you're not going to get near as many sun flares and bad stuff out of it. So you can deal with a little bit more of a eastern sunrise light on your camera, and then you're really protecting your camera from the sunset stuff. And to be honest, you're going to get a lot of movement in the evenings in the summertime. So why not have your camera set up to take evening pictures?
Right. Yeah.
So
for sure, man. And
yeah.
And so, like, I guess that would apply to cameras that are more on the edges, out of the trees and stuff, this time of year. And so the second one we set was kind of at an opening. And if you remember, it was near the bodark and the plum trees. Why don't you lay that one out for the
we
listener?
actually set that one. It's pretty near to like a meadowed edge, and it's almost like that. I don't know if you call it a staging area because they're not really going out there to feed right now, but it's still like just inside the cover, but it's in a little open area where you can still get a decent picture.
They're going to go there at night, basically.
Yeah,
only.
Exactly.
So, and
they're going to, I tested this theory today, actually. So a different type of plum tree, the standard wild plums that we have, I don't know if they're a Chickasaw plum or what you call them, but I've had my eye on a big patch on the way home. And I drove by today, and they were all gone. I was like, what on earth? Somebody came out here and picked them. Well, I stopped, and it wasn't somebody. It was something. There was hog and deer tracks all over that stuff, man. They've been tearing it up. So I think it was a good thing for us to place that camera pretty close to that Mexican plum that our buddy Matt Ross so kindly helped identify for us.
Yep.
Thanks, Matt. But I think that's going to be a great camera for us, and it's going to be one of those ones that develops even more as the year goes on. You know what I mean? Like we're liable to get deer on that camera now, and that's why we set it there. But I feel perfectly confident leaving that camera there through December and still getting a lot of deer on it, you know?
Yeah, for sure, man. And you know, you mentioned this earlier, but when we came up to the spot, it was one of those spots, like you said, that you just kind of, you know, you just thought, man, this looks like a deer movement area. And we got to looking, maybe it was right before that, we saw the Mexican plum, and really the leaves had just been browsed off. There was a browse line, you know, big time, like as good as you would see around here.
Yeah. And that's something too, because none of the other trees had that.
Yes.
You know, like it's one thing if you're in a high density deer population area where there's kind of a browse line everywhere and you're like, okay, there's too many deer here. But we're in a thicket, and this is the only tree that we've seen that has a browse line, you know, so it's pretty highly preferential. Yeah,
for sure. And then we ended up, you know, getting ready to hang that camera, and we thought about the other tip that you mentioned about the grass growing, and, you know, in an open area like that especially, that grass is going to grow up quick, you know. So we put the camera up higher in hopes that we would kind of get above the grass and stay above the grass for a while. And did that, and then kind of moved on up and hung a few more. Did we hang 2 more cameras up there?
I believe it's just 1 more.
Okay.
But I'm not sure. I need to go back and look at our map and see. But I believe the last one we hung was right after. So we snuck up on this boar hog wallering around in this pond that I wanted to go check out to see how the deer have been using it. And lo and behold, there's just this big old happy pig just wallering around. But we played with him for a little bit, finally scared him off. And then actually saw a doe not long after that. And I found a bed right there.
I forgot to mention, right after we hung the second trail camera, we saw does like 30 yards from there.
Yeah. We've seen deer a lot at that place, man. I think it's going to be, I think there's quite a few of them around. That's cool. But we saw that doe. We kind of, again, found one of those feeder creeks and followed the drainage up. And saw that doe. I found a bed underneath like a natural hinge cut, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
We saw some crazy giant beetles that were feeding on the sap out of a burdock tree. And then it did it again. We actually came, this is a little tip, but we came to a cross fence that was in pretty good shape still. And a deer has no problem jumping a cross fence or jumping a standard 4-wire or 5-wire or whatever, barbed wire fence. But we followed it to a spot where the top 2 wires were broke. And it just so happened to be right on the edge of one of those creeks. So that is straight up like Deer Funnel City right there. And you could tell, man. And it was cool because there were no pig crossings right there. There's no mud on the bottom wire. And you could tell it was all deer using that thing. So I'm pretty excited about that camera, to tell you the truth of the matter, because it's kind of in the heart of the thicket, really, right there, you know?
Yeah, it was thick in there for sure. And man, honestly, there was there was good buck sign in there. We saw lots of rubs, saw some old scrapes. You had seen some when you were in there in February that, scrapes are going to show up a little better that time of year, but we saw quite a few, and that's another good place to put your cameras. I think if you're webbing out, if you find a trail, that has scrapes and or rubs on it, likely a buck used that during the fall, and and on an area like this, it's gonna, that buck's gonna still use that trail. And if it, like you were saying earlier, if it's ag country and things change this time of year or whatever, a different crop or something like that, I mean, it may change them up, but it's still, I think, if you find an extraordinary amount of scrapes or rubs in that area, I mean, you're probably, in deer habitat. And I think a trail like that, a trail that crosses with that kind of stuff is going to be a great place to hang a camera and backtrack from there, so.
Yeah, sure. I think something too that needs to be, I guess, recognized is that this is the time of year to get in there and just mess it all up if you're going to do it. You know, like, don't intentionally scare off deer, but like, there's a very low risk of you running a mature buck off of a parcel this time of year. You know, he's liable to bound out or run out of sight, but it's like the least amount of concern that you need to have right now on scaring deer. I noticed that you and I actually, when we got down in there deep, we were whispering, and I think it's just like our nature. You know what I mean? It's just what we do. Like, just don't want to make too much of an intrusion. But and right now is the time to get in there, bust it up, and learn some stuff. You know, get in there, find the beds, find the trails, find those old scrapes and rubs like you're talking about, and get to know the property. That way you're not in that position in the fall. You know, and if you're afforded that liberty, then do it. You know, there's some places that we are going to have to speed scout as we, you know, prepare to hunt. And that's fine. But if you can get on a place where you can get in there and tear it up like that, it's a good thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's one time. You know, it's one time during the summer, and
don't do it every 2 or 3 days.
Yeah,
now that'd be different. Yeah,
it's really it's less than the pressure you put on the property when you hunt it several times in the fall. You know, probably.
Sure. Yeah.
But the thing is, by doing that, you get to learn what's going on in all the parts of the property, and therefore in the fall, hopefully you hunt it more effectively and with less, scent dispersal crossing a deer's nose or whatever, you know. So, that's a good point to be made. I would also say snake boots are handy.
Yeah, you almost got you one.
Dude, I had my snake boots on because I just have decided to wear them after all the, I don't know, I guess just as many miles as we walk, we just end up running into snakes, you know. I don't think they're everywhere out there or anything, but this is just the craziest little coincidence, but I've been going through Greenbrier all day, you know, but go through a pretty hardy patch, and it pulls my laces out of the top of my snake boot. And so as soon as I got out of it, I stopped and bent down to put my laces back in my boot. And a dang water moccasin is like probably 5 or 6 foot in front of me. And he hadn't moved a muscle. And as soon as I bent down, he starts slithering away, and it scared the mess out of me, dude. Because I mean, he wasn't within striking distance of me, but it's just one of them things where your face is all of a sudden 2 feet from the ground, and he's like 5 feet from your face, and you're like, oh my gosh. So yeah, he took off, and he wasn't really super close to the creek. I mean, he was probably 20, 25 yards from the creek, you know, so.
Yeah, up there hunting.
Yeah, he was, so handy thing to have this time of year if you're going to be walking a lot of miles, and
no kidding,
especially around creek bottom stuff.
How do you think, that's how we approached a brand new property or pretty much brand new property. How's that compared to how you're going to approach like where a teenager is? You know, I know we've kind of set a web out there, but do you think that we've done it right so far?
Man, I don't know. I think the last camera we hung in there is a good hang, man. You know, I think that's the best one so far. Yeah, I do too. The other one was a mission that was humid as it gets and just blazing hot and sweaty, no wind. And we got like way back up in there in the spot that's hard to get to. It takes a long time to get there. And we didn't find the sign we wanted to find, you know. So, like, that's tough, man. You know, if you don't really feel confident about putting a camera out, you know, I don't know. So, to me,
I think. Go ahead.
I think that we just need to let them soak a couple more weeks and go check them, and then have a backup plan and go like, well, what if he's not on any of these cameras, or what if he's on one of them, which is likely, and not on the other two? You know, what are we going to do? And then move those cameras and try to, really triangulate them the best you can, you know?
I've got this feeling that when we went in there and hung some of those, we told ourselves we weren't going to bite off too much. We're going to do it right. But that one that's just such a drudge fest to get back in there too is almost too much in itself. So every time we get back there, we kind of end up settling for our camera placement, which I don't think ours was too bad this last time, but it's kind of like I hope he walks here. you know. And I think that there's a very good possibility that when we go back in there, even if he is on it a little bit, we might want to turn that camera into 2 and then head one direction and the other from that camera. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like it's
two points of reference there.
Yeah. Because I feel like, you know, on a property where you've got a really, you know, like a hard boundary like that, where when we just went and scouted with the big river and stuff, like you've got a really good spot that you can say, okay, the deer are going to travel this like it's a highway and they're not going to cross it much, you know? Well, whenever you're talking about like just a square piece of woods, there's not a great way to say that, you know? So I think you just need to push in from all the corners and just keep, you know, it's like how a spider builds a web. Literally, right. You go and you establish a perimeter and you work your way in and in and in, you know, until you can really hone in on a home range. Yeah. And we hope that the first 3 cameras that we've got out over there will help us do that. I'm with you. I think that Exodus that we hung on the creek or the little feeder or low spot or whatever is going to be a good hang. Yeah. I think that's going to pay off for us. Yeah. And if it doesn't, then I think that it still helped a ton because we think that's such a good spot. And if deer's not on there, then we know that he's not hanging out on that side of the property, you know, as opposed to the first one we hung that was a sweat fest. If the deer's not on there, it's like, well, did he just walk, you know, a different direction and wasn't in the spot? Right.
Yeah, man. I don't know. It's been tough over there. You know, we hung the first camera we hung over there. We didn't find. We had like one series of pictures of a doe on there after a couple weeks, and I kind of feel like that camera needs to just be placed a little different. You know, like I feel like it's in the spot that could pick up some deer. It just may not be aimed in the right direction or something, you know, like. Yeah. Because I mean, postseason, January, February, March, or whenever it was, you know, the first couple of months after season, we caught a lot of deer on that camera, but it was like 20 yards away in a little different angle, you know. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like that might need to be adjusted. I feel like, you know, a couple of things like that, but this deer has been a tough one to really pattern, you know. I mean, the best pattern we had was February of 2017, I think, you know. So
yeah, that's a while back and not in hunting season. That's right. I think that you and I have talked a lot about this, and we're going to have to put money where our mouth is on this deal, but it's great for us to try to target a specific deer, especially when it's a really great buck, you know. But we need to not manage expectations, but definitely be willing to not let a little bit of history with a deer blind us to a great opportunity at a buck. Right. You know what I mean? Like, you can't see the forest for the trees kind of deal, you know? Yeah. Like, I got last year, I was real concerned with Scar, you know, and it could be the same way with teenager, but we could have been hunting a lot of other places on good days and maybe seen mature bucks, you know, or had the opportunity of mature bucks. So I think that we're setting ourselves up to obtain information to head that direction. I think that we just need to continue on with our, you know, summertime trail camera strategies and make sure that we're just trying to find deer use areas a lot more than specific target bucks.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think the best thing we did for our hunting next year was have many trail cameras out in November, you know? Yeah. I mean, that's one thing. If you didn't have that going last year, you're not probably in the same spot we are, but this coming year, I mean, dang, you need to be, by Halloween, you need to have trail cameras all over the place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is no lie, dude.
That way because I just think, man, we got one out on November 25th or something, and it went nuts for the whole rest of the deer season, you know. And yeah, we missed it last year, but now we know something, you know. And,
dude, I know where I'm going to be on November 27th.
Dude.
Or one of us is going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
That is for sure.
Yeah. So pretty exciting, man. I'm excited about everything. You know, like KC said, we're putting out a couple of videos every week, pretty much. I mean, we've got some PLC stuff. We have the Flash 20 video, that Sitka backpack. Go check that out. If you're interested in pretty good all-purpose backpack or a really cool beard. Anything else, man?
I think that's about it, man. Just hope that my ankle gets better and my fungus is no longer among us in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So maybe go check out that last podcast we did with Mark Kaiser, because that was a good one, dude.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to it again the other day, and it's chock full of some good information.
Man, it is for sure, man. That was great. I had forgotten. We did it so long ago. I'd forgotten how good it was, and
I know it.
Like, I was just glad to hear it again, man. It's good
Mm-hmm.
information for sure. Anyway, God bless you guys, and remember, this is your element.
Live in it.
Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay? Every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Arts Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.